Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brown, and with me for the very first time is our first-rate fact-checker. Say hi, first-rate fact-checker.
Hello, that's me, Brian. Is that good
Brian,
enough? I didn't say
perfect.
the thing that I know I'm supposed to say, which is hello, first-rate fact-checker. But
look,
I decided
it's real hit and miss whether people do it or not.
That was me knowing it and then actively avoiding it still.
That's fair. Look, sometimes when I'm interviewing Vic, they stop listening to me the moment I start talking, and then they don't know what they're supposed to repeat back to me.
That's great.
So there's a big gap of them being like, hello, and as they're trying to like cycle back through what they just heard.
Too tough.
Thank you so much for joining me. This is so exciting. I have a weird bone really to pick with Iffy, but you are related. So at PAX East, we were walking around. And Iffy said, have you seen Brian's camcorder video? And I said, no. And he was like, you gotta watch it. And then I did. And I'm not okay anymore.
It's always so funny when, like, Iffy, of all people specifically, like Iffy being like, oh, I love that video of yours. I'm always like, that's not the one I would have picked. But like now that I know Iffy a lot better and that he's like big into like weird movies and art house stuff and like he loves his film. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Thank you. I feel honored that he likes that art.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing so deeply. As someone whose dad died when he was very young and has a 2.5-year-old, it hit me on a lot of levels that were deeply upsetting. On top of just the general, very upsetting vibe to it.
Yes. I've heard that. It's been funny to see, like, from both sides of it, people who are obviously children of dads and also dads themselves who have children that are now that age. Both of them have very visceral reactions to that. So
yeah. And then of course every time the camera panned over to the hallway after the first real bad pan over to the hallway, I was like, please no more. Anyway, absolutely incredible. It will haunt me forever. Thank you so much.
Glad. Happy to do it for sure.
I also have one very weird question for you right out the gate. And that is because someone on Reddit said that they were next in line at PAX East to ask a question. And their question was, what is your, or who is, I don't know, I don't watch it, favorite Gundam?
Oh, my favorite Gundam has always been Sandrock Custom, but that's again means nothing to you, Jordan, as someone who has not watched Gundam. But if anyone is going back, this is from Gundam Wing, which is how I think most people in America got into Gundam because it was on Toonami at that time. And I liked Sandrock Custom not just because I liked the aesthetic of it, but because the pilot of Sandrock is the sweetest boy in the whole series, and that was always the person that I found the most compelling in any series.
Look, I will say this is embarrassing and I shouldn't admit it because I haven't watched Gundam. And so before PAX East, I was like, I should watch some just so like I could talk because I know that's what you and Iffy originally bonded over. And I was like, oh, I know people online have been talking about like the new Gundam, and so I was like trying to find it. People have been talking about the new Shogun. Those are not the same things.
No, not
those
quite.
Are thousands of years apart.
Very yes. One of them hasn't happened yet, and one of them has happened. One of them might never happen, in fact. Right. So that's a very clear defining line between those two things.
Yeah. First episode of Shogun's very good though. It took me. It was a while. I was like searching online for new Gundam, and like the internet was like, "There's one in October this year," and I was like,
"Yeah,
that doesn't seem right."
You caught me for a second because I was like, "Oh shoot, do I not know about this new?" Okay, I'm glad to hear that. But yes, also I can imagine if you go into the first episode of Shogun and you're like, "When are the big robots going to show up?" I don't understand.
Once I figured out my mental mistake of just like seeing someone start to say the word Shogun in a TikTok and swiping away from it because it also meant nothing for me. Like once I like went back and found someone who was talking about it, as soon as I heard the word, I was like, this is feudal Japan. This is not
different one.
This is not going to be giant robots. I like giant robots. I'm very much like I should watch Gundam.
It is good. It's a fun. That's the thing is that I have watched. So like the only full series of Gundam I've watched is Gundam Wing, and I've seen enough clips of other things that I also just have a bunch of Gunpla. I have some in my room with me right now. But like the thing is it's a big series. It's similar to like telling somebody to get into Godzilla, where it's like there's so many of them and they're all very, very different, and so you have to figure out the specific thing that you're getting into. But yeah, Gundam's great. All big robot anime is great, and I'm just happy that I again bonded with Iffy over that pretty early on.
Yeah, because I asked if he, like I've done one of these with him, which is why I ended up at PAX East with you. I was like, how did it happen? He ran me through the like meeting on Dirty Laundry. You were wearing, I believe, Gundam shoes, and he was like,
correct.
"That's cool. I want to be that person's friend."
It's so funny because that first thing was like, I went in. Those are the only like nice sneakers I have because my fiance Karen got them for me. I got like one Christmas was just all Gundam themed gifts. It was fantastic, and that was one of them. And then I went in and like if he was like, dang, where did you get those like the unicorns? And I was like, oh, my fiance got them for me somehow, I don't know. And then like realizing how much of a sneakerhead Iffy is, and me being like, well, these are the one sneakers I have. I'm glad that I chose the one perfect pair of sneakers for us to become friends. Truly, like if it was any other type, but I wore the exact one. It was a perfect confluence of just destiny. It seemed.
Yeah. That's delightful. Yeah. I know, like you saw, obviously I was rocking my Game Changer sneakers at PAX East, which I'm a huge fan of. And it's very funny because it's a kind of similar story. Kevin Stiller, DP of Game Changer. I don't know if he shoots for actually or not, but
I don't think he was RDP for at least the things that we were working on. But yes, I know who you're talking about.
He has bounced around, like, as everyone does. Like, I talked to Eve Hines this week, the editor, and she also, like, does, like, she's right now on Very Important People, but has done Game Changer and has, like, she's all there. It seems to be when someone gets hired at Dropout, they just do everything at Dropout.
Yes. It is a good thing. It is one of those things now that Dropout has enough shows that things can be, now it's like, oh, you can't do well, at least the, like, guests can because they show up in, like, one day. But, like, if you are the DP for one show, that like you need to understand there's another show that's like spinning up right now that might need that like role over there ready to go, and it's funny to see as it gets bigger, so too does the crew, because we need more people. There's just more things to be made.
I am curious how you came to Dropout originally. What was sort of that trajectory for you?
Yeah, so I mean, technically, if you're talking about like when I started to appear in more Dropout things for real was when like we moved to Los Angeles, and so I was in the area and could film, and that was like when it was like really properly just Dropout. But technically, the first thing, like when I was first still in New York, back when College Humor still existed as a concept and hadn't been shuttered by the terrible money men. But that was the first time that I really, I think, went in was for Brian Miller's show Table Pop, which was a thing that showed up. It was, I guess, still purely College Humor. I think that one was I think that one was just on Dropout. Forgive me. It all blends together at that weird time when things were changing so much. But that was like, I think, the first show that I really did with, again, good pal Brian. And then from just, weird internet mutuals and stuff, knew about, was like friendly online with Brennan Lee Mulligan, who then reached out when they were doing the Dimension 20 live show in Brooklyn at the Bell House. And at that point I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll come do this. This seems like a really fun time. I would love to do that. And I knew enough about everyone doing it and about like the story that I felt like I can hop into this. And so that was like the first real, like, that was such a weird first big thing to be doing a live show, where like I also ended up sticking around afterward because they were like, would you like to stick around for the like signing? Some people seemed like they would want you to sign their poster or whatever, and I was like, sure. I'm not a part of this show. This feels very strange for me. And like, sure enough, like people would walk around going to everyone to get their signatures and stuff, and like I would say 80% of them were like, I don't know who you are, but do you want to sign my thing anyway? And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds great. I'd love to. I know you're here for those people, but like, yeah, why not? I'll throw an extra signature on your poster. But it was a very fun first gig. But then, yeah, sure. Once it became really just Dropout, and my fiance and I moved out to Los Angeles. I think it was actually was the first thing that I did in the Dropout studios here, where they like called us, and it was like maybe a week or two after we had moved, and they were like, "Hey, do you and Karen want to come be on Actually?" And we were like, "Yeah, that sounds great." And so that was the first one here in Los Angeles.
Yeah, that's very funny. You and I had similar experiences then with our first like Dropout, because I'm not a live show, but kind of. And people weirdly walking up to me like, "Do you also want to sign the thing that I really want Iffy and BDG to sign?" And I'm like, I guess. Like, what weird, like, pick a corner so that you don't have to look at my signature, that I can like hide it away for you.
But it was I was so glad that you were there. You were so helpful in every way, for not just the moderation, but also being around. And like when we were doing the post panel impromptu thing that we got chastised for, fan meeting, which was very funny and great. And it was so lovely to meet everybody. But Jordan kept being like, "Hey, Brian, it's like almost 7. You got to go to a different panel soon. Hey, do you need food?" And I was like, "Thank you so much for checking in with me, Jordan. This is not your job at all, but I'm appreciative."
Look, I threw on a moderator hat. Does not end when the panel's over. It ends when you're out of my sight.
Yes.
I had gone the day before and like taken pictures of the room. Like I was ready to be like, "No, I'm good at this. Let me come back and do more." The panel was, I thought, super fun. Obviously, boy, did we underestimate how many people would want to come to it.
I understand if he's want to be, and he's a very modest, sweet guy. He's a great dude. But also I was like, if there is going to be a place where a lot of people know about Actually, it's gonna be PAX. That is the place where that many people would exist. Like truly. Talking to my fiance Garrett and stuff, where it's like I have sometimes seen beautiful board game like stores and like tabletop stores, and I've wanted to go in and like just check stuff out, but I've also been like, I think a lot of people, if people will know who I am, they will be in this store. This is where they will be. And it's not that I don't want to interact with them, but it's just like sometimes I'm not feeling as sociable. I'm not the most social guy in the world, and I have to really build myself up for that. And PAX is the most that, truly.
Yes. PAX is maximum that. I can confirm, as someone who was on the floor with you in a full mask. I think 2 of like 20 people asked if you were BDG before they started to tell you how great you were. Like most people just walked up and they're like, "I love your work." Like no hesitation of like, "I know who this is. It doesn't matter. I can only see half his face."
Yeah, I'm astounded at like also because it's not that I'm again trying to do this, but I tend to like get big haircuts or big shifts to my face and my facial hair and everything. And so the people who can like pin me out from again wearing a mask, very impressive. I would not be able to pick me out in a crowd that way.
Yeah, and I think someone even was like, "I heard your voice and I knew it was you," and I was like, "Wow." It was very fun watching Iffy buy. I had like $1,000 worth of Magic cards. He bought so many Magic Gathering cards.
So funny to watch that slowly him continuously get upsold on Magic the Gathering. Like I never in my life have I seen somebody so willing to get upsold also to just be like, "Here's a playmat. Oh, and here's some extra sleeves. And and would you like this second deck for this?" And it's like,
you have all of one Commander's deck. What about 2?
Another one.
Boy, I hope that guy's working on commission, because
he should. Just deserved it.
Bang up job.
Really
selling Iffy on Magic the Gathering.
Really amazing.
I will also say though, like PAX East, I think if we put your name on the schedule and the room was just like, he's going to sit there in silence for an hour, we still could easily fill like 750. Like mega celebrity at PAX East very specifically, but like
the thing that happens in for all panels at PAX East is that like I'm glad that I can bring people into a room. I truly also think that some part of it was because of perfect poker rap that I did at PAX East, which was so much work. And I also now have that feeling whenever I do like a normal panel where I'm just kind of talking. I'm like, oh no, I hope no one's coming to this expecting something like good. Like not to say that the panel wasn't good, but like that I have not prepped things for this. I'm just gonna be chatting at this point in time.
Yeah, you were on like 30 minutes of sleep for like 36 hours. And someone did ask you about the poke rap, and you very politely were like, I think you did like 4 or 5, like starting off like the level of Pokemon, and then you're like, that's all I got. I can do no more.
I truly have no. It's not in the brain anymore. It's somewhere. It's deep in my bones, but it's not something I could just pull out anymore.
Yeah, entirely fair. I'm also very curious because you've talked quite a bit about the parasocial nature of lots of things, and you have like jumped headlong into a company who I have heard it described as like the parasocial speed run in terms of like the fandom of Dropout.
Yes.
How you feeling about that?
I have slowly over the course of the years that I've worked on the internet built up more strategies on how to make sure that I'm not like diving fully into the parasocial relationship. And I think it's more like I tend to set up bigger barriers, obviously, than like fans who want to interact with me, where I want to make it clear that I'm like, hey, I'm not your friend. We don't know each other. You know infinitely more about me than I do about you. Truly, just from existing, like to the point that I have forgotten the words that I have said on the countless things that I've appeared on. I think that's like for me, that's an important thing to like make that very clear as I've gone in. And I try to make it not like, it's not a harsh thing. It's not like, I hate you. How dare you watch my stuff? It's like, no, I want you to watch my stuff, but I also want you to know that me and the things that I make are separate. And like, it is important to keep that very clear. More so, I think it's like the responsibility of whoever is in a position of like a lot of people knowing who they are. I think it's way more important for them to set those things up, because otherwise you get the like, not to I won't name any names, they don't need any more views, but like the kind of influencers that very clearly prey on that are like, oh, and I do love you, and we do love each other, and also you should buy all of my merch, and have you considered buying my self-help stuff, and also you're not that important, and you would be if you bought these things that I have, right? Like that, then you get closer into the cult leader side of things, and that's not good. And so I try to make sure I would be a lot more profitable if I had really leaned into the parasocial stuff. I'm sure I could retire early, but I don't want to do that. That sucks for everyone involved. And so it's important to make that very clear distinction. But that's not to say that like I also feel parasocial relationships with people and celebrities and like creators that I love. And I think that that's a nice thing. The thing that I think that Dropout does a little bit better than other online media companies that I've seen is that they are making sure that the social relationships that really matter are the ones between the cast members. And so that way the viewers can watch that friendship that is existing really on the screen and feel that kind of like social connection to it. But it's not like I am talking to you, the viewer, and you're my friend. It's like I'm friends with Iffy and you get to hang out with us as we enjoy our friendship together, right? It's anyway, the parasocial relationships I could talk about for like hours and hours and hours because I have so many thoughts about them. But I think that's good enough for now.
Yeah, it's great. I'll tell you, as someone who not seemingly has changed a parasocial into a social, it's weird for me too. Because like now a bunch of these people are my friends, and I'm like,
it is that is a weird thing that I think that like I want to make it clear, I have felt that way too, and there have been people who I have loved the work of for a while that I've ended up working with, or like even into a slightly lower degree, I loved Iffy's stuff before I ever actually met Iffy, and now we are friends. Where it's like I know we live in the same sort of spaces online, but we like that is one of those things where, but it is great where I know that I have a little bit of a connection with this guy before I meet him, because I'm like, hey, we like similar things. But it also wasn't like when I met him, I was like, here are all the things I know about you, Iffy. Let's be friends now. Why don't we hang out and go to food places together? Like it was more just like you work with a person, and then in the process of working with someone, you get to know them, and then you're like, hey, this person's actually pretty cool.
And then you say, let's go get food together.
Let's go get food together, Iffy, yes. Please. Which is always very important.
A cornerstone of your friendship, from what I have heard. We talked about it at PAX East. The tapas is the place to start a burgeoning friendship of like,
it really
you
is.
can share everything.
Yeah,
I think that's a fantastic strategy.
Sharing food is the most intimate thing in the world to me. Is so important. Being able to share, being able to like, also especially when it's like the point when I knew we were like really close was when I was like, we're ordering separate things, but I still want you to have a bite of this, because and that's when you're like, oh, we're connecting for real. That's a very important relationship, being able to have your own food and say, have a bite. Ooh, big deal right there.
That is, agreed. Yeah, I will say, like, Vic Michaelis came to Austin for South by Southwest for, I think they were here for 36 hours.
Fun.
And I sent them 3 taco place recommendations, like Bodega, and like 3 pretty fine dining places in case they wanted to do dinner. And they went to all 3 of my taco places and then like ranked them for me, and like got coffee from the like bodega that I told them about.
Amazing.
And I was like, oh, we're real friends. And this means so much to me that that like, because my food recommendations I take so seriously.
Yes.
And the fact that you were like, not only did I go to all 3 that you said, but I have ranked them and the same way that you did. I'm like, great, we're best friends now.
That is like, really, really great.
Yeah, but I will also say, I think Vic and I did 4 episodes of whatever this thing is that I do before like I was able to be like, I think Vic and I might really be friends. And everyone's like, you talk to them bi-weekly. What do you mean you think? It's like, all right. I just...
Yes. It's always, the internet makes it so hard to tell what relationships are real and which ones aren't, especially in this industry where it's like, there's certainly people I have met that I'm like, you don't care about me, but you care that I have numbers on my list. And that you have to, I am more naive than most people. And if I can figure it out, then you're really, you are making it clear. I have to be, but like, that's just, it's always a weird thing. The internet makes relationships strange. That's just
so strange. Yeah. But yeah, well, speaking of Vic though, Avery Goodman, absolutely. Just such a good episode, such a fantastic show. Have you been watching the other episodes? I know you said you didn't watch yours, which is entirely fair.
I still have not watched my episode, but that's just my own hangups. I'll work through it eventually. And I have to say that like Vic very kindly was, like, hey, just finally watch the episode. It was super good. I'm like, as long as Vic likes it, that's what matters. I really don't care about anyone else's opinion right now, or at least I shouldn't. But I am always like, oh, I have to. It is. I've been watching the other ones though. I've been keeping up with the other ones, and they're all astounding. And like that show was first pitched to me truly just as like, hey, we're doing a thing. I don't know if you saw our former series when it was just still College Humor, but we're trying to do this again, and we're gonna get like extremely very good makeup artists to come in and like put you in a chair for multiple hours and put some stuff on you. And I was like, I want to do this more than anything in my whole life, but like I'm so nervous because I was like, improv wise, I think I can manage, but like the thing that I want is to sit in a chair and have really great professional makeup artists do some wild stuff to me. Like that's the thing I want to do, and I wish that I didn't have to get filmed afterward. I just want to go do that and then like walk around the streets for a little bit and then come back and then take it off. Like that would be the best thing for me.
Yeah. Any clue what was happening to you while it was happening?
Really, no. Like I think I started to get maybe a slight inkling when we had to actually put on the costume and I saw it was like a white coat, I was like, maybe doctor-y something, but I'm not 100% sure. But like one of the things that the makeup artist did was have code names for each of the prosthetic things, where like as they were putting stuff on, they would be like, oh, could you get the dog fur? Could you get the cat fur? And I was like, oh, what's going on here? Also, another thing that they did is do fake makeup. And I'm not sure if that has shown up.
Yeah, it has. Clearly. Yes, in some of the behind the scenes, they've talked about like, let's put the horns on now when there are no horns to put on.
There are no horns. Like there was a whole section where I like, because I could feel obviously something getting put on my eye, right? Like that was a very clear, I can't see anymore. That's obvious. But the like in that process, and then at the same exact time, the other makeup artist was like drawing something on my neck, or like making it very clear that something was going on my neck. There was nothing put on my neck the entire time, but because this was being put on and then this was going on, I was like, am I a zombie? Is this like a rotting part of my flesh? Like what's going on? And then I was like, maybe I'm a werewolf because of all the fur that they're putting on me, and like truly had no idea. I when I went in, I was like, I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out before, and that'll give me a little bit more time to come up with my character. No, absolutely not. Truly nothing.
Yeah, I will say, like, in the behind the scenes that they show every other week, the only person who seems to have been able to figure it out was Josh Rubin, who obviously was in the original Hello, My Name Is. And I mean, they got nothing by him. Like when they were, he was like, what's your favorite way to paint pimples on someone? Like he knew everything that they were doing. And so, I mean, I think the brilliance of his episode is they had the puppet, because obviously he was not prepared for the puppet to be like flown at the last second to be like, here you go and go. Like,
really fantastic.
Yeah, like he was like, you're doing a middle part. I know exactly what's happening right now. Like he was so on it. It's so funny to watch. And like I think even like the makeup artist Alex talked about, like I knew Josh was going to know everything that I was doing to him. One of the things that I really love about the show is how different every episode is. That it has those like Lisa Gilroy's Nana is, I think, maybe the greatest filmed improv I've ever seen.
It's astounding. Like the thing about improv is that obviously everyone has their way of getting into it, and like people who are really, really good at improv can do lots of different things. But even someone who like me, who's just okay at improv, knows a handful of tricks, has a bag that I know that I can live in and work well in. And so it's been funny to like see all of these, just like truly Dropout is, I would say, the best like improvisers that they found, like really one of the best places for really, really good improvisers to go, partially because they know how to do improv, so improvisers trust them, but two, they know how to edit improv, which is astoundingly difficult and very, very challenging to make sure that you can have like a solid through line as you're going through it. So the editors of all of the shows on Dropout are fantastic. But yeah, it's been cool to see you can like really separate and like see the kind of games that people like to play based on like the way that they work together with Vic. And yeah, I think that that's one of the most delightful parts of the show, is that you have a bunch of like really, really funny things happening, but they're all in totally different realms. Like it's not all just the same, I'm a weird guy and now we're doing weird things, right? Like there's a lot of depth to it in a funny way.
Yeah, I know. And I talked to Iffy about Denzel. He had talked about like how it was the moment where Vic says that like the moonlight is reflection of the sunlight, and he like sees like the path like diverge in the woods, and down one path is you humans don't understand, and the other path is he just doesn't understand basically anything. And obviously takes that one, and it becomes incredible. From what you've said to me, like that it seems like sort of a similar thing where Vic like says, so I hear you're running for office, and then all of a sudden like
everything
Avery
clicks.
Goodman, like, vote for me or else, like, becomes a thing. By the way, God, or else you'll vote for the other guy. So good. So good.
that was really something that like locked it in, where I've had a couple pals be like, how much time did you really have to like prep your stuff? And it's none. You see yourself, you get maybe 10 minutes as they're like prepping the cameras and making sure all the shots are going. Also, like truly the first time I ever met Vic was on set in full makeup. Like I had never met Vic beforehand, but I had seen enough of their stuff that I was like, oh yeah, I trust them with my life. Like they'll make sure that this is going well. And sure enough, I stick by that. Like Vic made that experience that was very stressful for me, as I'm like, oh, I hope I'm doing okay. Vic is so good at like truly no one else could do that job better than Vic.
Yeah.
And but that was the thing, when I came out, I knew I was like, okay, if I'm like soft spoken but malicious, right? Like there's some bad stuff going on under the surface, but I'm covering it up. Like that was the only game that I knew I was coming in with, was like, sweet, oh, I'm really nice, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm actually trying to do, and I couldn't really figure out like where I was going with that as the professor. And so when Vic was like, oh, and you're interested in politics and whatever, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. Like, of course, this is the thing, is like the reluctant politician, where it's like, I don't think people should become politicians, but I just feel like I need to, because everything's wrong here and I need to fix it, right? And so that was like, it really, at that point, I was like, okay, I feel comfortable now. I know what I'm doing. I know what we're playing. This is going to make things a lot easier going forward.
Yeah, jumping into the only I can fix it politician was really fantastic. And yeah, so malicious, but like, well, it's okay, right? I would say like getting to talk to Vic, because this is one of my favorite things. The Tommy Shrigley episode, Zach Oyama's episode. I guess Zach was sitting in the green room. I'm not sure, like, I guess there was some time after his makeup was done before he had seen what he looked like. So he was just like waiting to like find out what he looked like. And Vic went in, Vic's phone was in the green room. And they were like, they were like, you can go in and get it. Just don't talk to Zach, because, like, he's in full makeup. And Vic said they went in, said, excuse me, because they didn't realize it was Zach. And then after they did, they took a picture on their phone and walked back out and like had no other interactions with him, because they just could not like formulate a conversation.
Absolutely. I would not be able to at that point. That one is the most, I think, out of like, obviously they're all great. They're all fantastic makeups, but like that one specifically, I was like, this is truly the most, I think you should leave. I've got too much shit on me. Like that's it was beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so good. It's funny. So like, obviously, like, you showed up in the preview for Very Important People. You're in the preview for Why Do I Not Remember That Nobody Asked, where you're seemingly in the back of a car on a racetrack or something. I'm not going to ask you specifics about it, but I mean, I know we've got like a lot, obviously, and then of course, actually, you're in that trailer as well. It's very funny to me. It's like I know who you are. I'm a fan, but I was shocked at how many people lost their minds the first time you showed up in a trailer for anything. Like every time you're in a trailer, people are like, but BDG is there. And I'm like, I got like to the point where I have to acknowledge that you're in a trailer when I make a video, because if I don't, so many people will leave a comment, but also BDG. And it's because I think it was the Dirty Laundry trailer. I was like, look at all these fun couches. Like there's a Critical Role couch and whatever. And like, I just named like the drag queens couch. Like I named a couple of like fun couches I saw, and they're like, also BDG. And I'm like, oh, okay. People are excited to see you.
I'm very flattered. I'm extremely appreciative of that. But I also, I mean, like, the beauty of Dropout and its audience is that it is managing to find a niche that I don't think was fully like understood, which is like comedy nerds outside of just pure nerds, which is like, you know, the unfunny nerds, all like the rest of them. No, I think that a lot of people are like, well, these are the things that exist, where it's like you either like video games or you enjoy humor, and those things should never meet. Those two are separate things. But like Dropout has carved out this amazing space where like the exact kind of people that like my content seem to congregate, which is I think why there's a lot of people who seem excited, and I'm very happy that they are, because if you keep posting that you're excited that I'm in a show, then hopefully they'll keep hiring me.
Which I guess we can say, like, you're not in Smarty Pants, at least not in any of the trailers. So I did see someone say that. Have you seen the show, the premise of the show?
Okay. Yes.
That's great. All right. So I saw someone say that they felt like Reka, who's the host, is going to, like, there's like season 2, who knows, like, will be in the desert. And will, like, come across you, like clearly, like, have, like, cut yourself off from society, and she's like, I need you to come back for one more job, because it does feel like something that's very much in your wheelhouse.
I do love a explaining a stupid concept but taking it very, very seriously. That is one of my favorite things in the world. But I also truly, I think that first group of people that they have for that is the exact people that they should have for that first season. I'm so excited to watch that.
I'm really excited. I will say, like, Vic's thing was like, vegetables don't exist, and then I was streaming about it afterwards, and I was like, what does that even mean? And someone was like, no, vegetables don't exist, and it sent me down a horrifying rabbit hole where, like, vegetables don't exist, fish don't exist, or fish do exist, and we're fish. And like the color brown doesn't exist. And, like, as this was happening, as my last name is Brown, I believe I shouted, I'm real, as I was, like, traveling down this rabbit hole, and was like, Brown exists, I'm real. So excited to see what else that show does to me.
I think it's a great idea, because, like, I remember when we were still, like, it was for some other show that I was hearing them talking about, like, their ideas for what they were going to be presenting, and I was like, this is a genius idea, like, this is so smart. It's already, like, not just, like, I think a lot of people talk about PowerPoint parties, which is a thing that exists, but also, like, I've seen PowerPoint comedy, and I've seen, like, if you take a look at also to a lesser extent, but, like, Chris Fleming's amazing work is similar, where it's like there's a prepared stuff on the slideshow and I can make comedy about it, and, like, it's a perfect choice, and, like, having all of those people in the same room is going to be so much fun to watch.
I'm really excited to see sort of why everyone is there. If there is, like, a voting process, like what the end goal is for, like how do we decide if Erika Ishii should get a Gundam built by the federal government? So good. I also said the word Gundam suit in a video, and I was like, someone's gonna be mad about that for sure.
Okay. It's like, you can pull it off, because technically Gundams are mobile suits is the term for the concept of large mecha. They're all called mobile suits. So if you said Gundam suit, people could be like, oh yeah, you're fine, that's okay, you just you moved one word around, you're okay. It still counts.
Thank goodness. Great. But I mean, this feels like a perfect transition to as we get into, like, pedantic corrections. You know what I hate? That pedantic, when you're describing it as something else, is pedantry, because that doesn't sound like a good word to describe. Like, I wanted to call you and, like, Iffy the purveyors of pedantry, but, like, it sounds like a thing that you should be locked up for.
Whenever someone, like, I've heard some people also describe, or depending on your accent, they call them pedants instead of, like, pedants, and I don't like pedants either, and none of them, there's no word that makes it sound good. I wish it was a slightly nicer word, but also I think it's it has the vibe fits what it is defining, so I think it's okay.
Fair. I just, like, if I get to introduce you again, I'm just going to keep saying a very good man, because it's my favorite thing in the world. It's also one of my favorite things. Sorry to jump back, but, like, how long it took some people to figure it out. Days later, people are like, I just got it.
So the way that name came about was just because, like, we were talking about just random different names for the things, and I had, like, I have a list on my phone from when I was working at a a box office for a theater in Baltimore of all of the names that I really liked as I was just like going through and like fixing files and stuff and being like, oh, that's an interesting name. Like, and I still to this day kind of do it just because I'm like, oh, this is fun for me to remember what kind of names can exist in the real world and like be like, oh, so it's fine to name this in a weird sci-fi character or whatever. Like I just on the plane ride to Boston, the person was like, I'm sorry, can I have passenger Chrysalis Payne please come to the and I was like, Chrysalis Payne is the coolest goddamn name I've ever heard in my whole life. And so I wrote that one down. But anyway, one of them was Avery Goodman, because I was like, oh, that's just a very good man. That's just a person truly the most like called shot. I'm gonna name my child Avery because my last name is Goodman, and so it's gonna be a very good man, and they're gonna work out fine. And I also like between that and like the classic BoJack Horseman Vincent Adultman, I was like, it's a fun thing to throw in there as like you're like, what's the most innocuous but also when you think about it like that seems like they're covering up for something kind of name I could throw in there.
Yeah. Oh boy, I feel this to my very core. I wish I could remember. I should have made lists because I used to wait tables, and so I saw so many names when I was running credit cards. And like periodically I would be like, God, it was like Killen House or something, like, you know, like the last name is like so wild. I'm like, but wow, that's so an amazing cool last name. I was also in a PhD program, and there was a man, I believe his name is Marcus Funk, so he's Dr. Funk. And I'm like, fucking incredible,
so like, good. If I had the last name Funk, I would have gone through a PhD program to the end, just so I could say,
just so I could be Dr. Funk. Amazing. So good. Actually,
yes,
so good. We're 2 episodes in.
Yes.
I don't know
this point,
how many.
3 we should have.
3, yes, because we had the original couch where I think it was Erica that was like, well, this has to be the first episode now, which was very funny. Then the Trap Lily and Saltzman couch, so fun. And then the Queens. What an episode!
So fun, just so good.
What's been your experience sort of diving into that very pedant world?
It's been interesting because like trying to first and foremost, like I obviously had a lot of respect for Saltzman beforehand. I have so much more respect for Saltzman now. It is a weird job to have because it's like the thing about a lot of nerd lore is that it can be both correct and then sometimes can be shifting at all times. It's not quite the same thing as like a very concrete, like this is the way that it is. Things change as time goes on. And so like the amount of research I did per question as like I was getting them in, because we worked with 6 amazing writers and researchers as we were doing this, just to make sure that we had a diverse group of questions that all weren't just like the things that I personally know. And so going through each one felt so much more like live or die, trying to make sure that they were absolutely correct, because I was like, I can get some things slightly incorrect, but like for a nerd show about getting things absolutely correct, like this is, I really gotta make sure that I am getting these 100% correct. And as people have probably already seen, I've screwed up a couple of the things as you go, just because this is a Sisyphusian task that that even if you are sure 100% sure in your brain, you're like actually 80% sure.
I'm sure General Thrawn will follow you to your grave at this point.
Absolutely will. It absolutely will.
It's also really funny because I saw a bunch of people after the jizz music, Jats music conversation. People were like, it's still called jizz. And I'm like, he didn't say it wasn't. He said they're clearly trying to change it.
It's fine. I think that's the other thing, is that like you can have those bits where I am clearly moving off from this is a fact and into this is a funny thing that we want to talk about now, where it's like, I know that you can still call it jizz music, but I also want to make it clear you should only call it jizz music. That's my opinion, is that like, you're right, you can do it, but I think you should only be able to. I think that's the thing that I'm talking about at this point.
George Lucas made the worst possible choice, and Star Wars should live with it until the sun explodes. Oh God, jizz music. Why?
It's a great thing.
So good.
Yeah.
Did Saltzman like leave parting advice for you? Is
like
he?
Saltzman has been very like. I was so glad. What's kind of funny is that am I right about this? Was that the final episode that we filmed? No, we filmed a different one. It was supposed to be the final episode. It was going to be the one with Trap, Saltzman, and Lily. But like the thing that was so helpful was like there was stuff to look back at. Like we had spreadsheets of all the questions that had been asked before, statements technically. But we like that was what I kind of came into. I didn't fully understand what I was getting into until I got into it, of like trying to make 150 interesting, funny, but still like pedantic questions. It is a challenge, and I fully understand why like Trap and Saltzman, specifically Trap, who's very busy with like a bunch of other writing work, like he, as the host, if he still needs to know what's going on with each of these questions, even if he doesn't like know them exactly in the same way I do, where I have to have like quick little things that I know where to check from, if he still needs to understand what all of these things are, so that way he can go through them and not be completely taken aback, right? And the same thing would have happened with Trap, where it's like, here's an extra layer of research that even though I'm the one who's technically checking it, you need to also check it. You need to make sure that you know what's going on. It's a weird thing that this was. I just totally gone off to say that like Saltzman, amazing, really the best. Didn't get a ton of advice from him just because he was already out at that point in time, and I was like hopping straight into it. But he was always there as like if you need to call me, like please let me know, and that was very helpful, very very helpful to have.
Yeah, I have to imagine it is, because I mean, the queens like very much like just like real stab in the dark guessing of things, but which was delightful to see.
So great.
But yeah, I know periodically like you will get that thing where someone latches onto some other wording in like the statement and be like, actually that part is wrong, and then you have to quickly be like, wait, did we like accidentally mess up a second part?
Yes. Yeah, that is the that's a nightmare, is trying to figure that out at the time. But that's also the reason I think they hired me, is like because the thing about it's not that I know everything about every nerd culture. The thing that I understand is how to get into it, which is a very difficult thing. Like you have to live in the nerd culture world for long enough to be able to be like, this is a word I need to look up. This is a word that is probably going to get us caught for some reason. Oh, they're talking about a full race of beings. I need to know a little bit more about what the situation is about whatever these bird people are in order to be able to look things up after the fact, right? Because like there were times, and I'm sure will continue to be, that during the actual filming I will get caught on something and be like, I didn't even think to look that up. I thought that was the fine part. You were like, oh, it's not blue, it's cyan. And I'm like, that shouldn't be important. I should still be able to, but if I look and they're like, oh, it's very clearly cyan and not blue, I'm like, oh, well, screw me. I didn't realize that was something I even needed to look up, but somebody who cares about that specific like fandom is going to know it, and I'm not going to.
Yeah. Oh man, this reminds me so much of before Burrow's End came out. I don't know if you saw, they tweeted like 3 emojis as like the hint for the next season. It was a blue dot, a lightning bolt, and a tree. And everyone on the internet was like, it's Percy Jackson.
Yes,
and I, having never read Percy Jackson, was like, hey gang, I think you're really leaning into that lightning bolt and just like missing the blue part. And oh boy, did the comment section come for me. They were like, actually, Jordan, the blue is incredibly important in Percy Jackson. And I Google like Percy Jackson blue, and it has its own like fan Wikipedia page, like every blue reference in the books. And I was like, got it. Nope, I was fully wrong on this one.
Yeah, you were right. That is correct. That would have been a great hint for a Percy Jackson campaign.
Yeah, it's also very funny because I think I'm 40, like everyone is roughly my age that's like at the tops of the shows, like making that kind of content. So they also had never read Percy Jackson because it just came out after we were like in that age group. And so none of them, like Carlos, like all the cast members, no one like at all
even
like
thought.
had any idea it was going to be connected to that.
Yes.
It was supposed to just be like a silly little thing.
Yep. And that's the hardest part. And that's again, same thing for the fact checker, where I'm like, I don't know how I can be wrong. And I think that's the hard, is like giving up, being like, I can be as prepared as possible. And I also know that there will be parts that I'm fully unprepared for, just because I have not played this game that I'm asking a question about, that I haven't watched this series. And it'll just be like things that I didn't even realize could be a question will keep popping up on the show itself. But luckily, I don't think there was ever. There might have been one or two things that I had to award an extra point for, because I was like, "You're right, that also was incorrect. Sorry about that." But we filmed them all so quickly that they all blended together, and now I can't remember which ones were which.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the case for every Dropout show, of just like, we filmed this in a week. I don't remember anything about it. Yeah, it is a fever dream that's gone. Like it was 8 months ago, and now I'm seeing it like you for the first time.
Exactly.
I do want to talk about, though, fantastic look in the last episode. Inspiration for, I mean, you talked about like the idea of like the all the coloring and stuff, but like, did you have other thoughts? Was that like first best? Like, where did that come from?
So Denise, who was running hair and makeup for that show, Denise
was also going to be my question. I know she does make hair and makeup for Dimension 20 as well. So
she is the best. Love Denise, and just truly to the point where like we had a meeting beforehand, because we had talked about this, where I think this is something also like maybe Brennan talked about when he was doing the drag Dungeons and Drag Queens, where it was like, this is not Brennan's art form. Brennan doesn't do drag, and so he wants to do something that is like fun and joyful and a part of this, but also isn't like, and now it's my thing. I'm the one. It's like truly like if I ran into like a museum and was like, I'm also a painter. Here, let me do this, and it's like, no, it's fine. They could those things, like it's a separate thing, but we also like for Iffy and I, we wanted to make sure, and also the queens were like, yeah, it'd be great if y'all were also in drag. And we wanted to make sure that we were doing stuff that was important and meaningful to us, and also big and fun and exciting. And so when we had that meeting beforehand with Denise, we were talking about like, what things do you care about that is in the nerd space, but is something that you really are passionate about and like also connects to you in some way. And so for me, it was like, so clearly I wanted to do something in the Baltimore Hun vein, right? Like, which is very John Waters. It's like a very important hairspray. Like, it's not only like a very big drag thing, but it's also just like a thing in Baltimore of like these huge beehive hairdos. And then I also was like, you know who also has that is the Great Fairies from The Legend of Zelda. They are basically Huns. They're like the sweethearts, like really big personalities. It's great. And so I was like, that's the perfect mashup for me, is that I want to be a Great Fairy, but from Baltimore. Like that's what the kind of vibe I want. And so when I had told Denise, I was like, yeah, the higher the hair, the closer to God. I was not expecting it to be so high, to be so
you were so close to God,
truly close to God at that point. But I like to the point that we had to like readjust the cameras to like be like, does this fit Brian in the space? Can we make sure that it's that he's still in there? But it worked out so well, and like that, the first time I saw that wig, I was like, oh yes, this is gonna be great. And like that was I'm not sure if you've heard in the actually, but if he was like losing his voice as we were going through this, because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of talking. And so we ended up having to take 1 day break and like lose one of our morning things, which meant that we had more time to do our hair and makeup for the drag queen episode, and then also take it off immediately. I think originally we were supposed to do that and then take it all off and then do another episode. That would have been impossible. Truly, I do not know if that would have been possible. It took a very long time to both put it on and take it off. I am I obviously had a ton of respect for drag queens beforehand, but after like getting my eyebrows glued and getting like all of my hair pulled back really tight, I was like, this is an impressive thing to be doing. And this is a once a month thing for me. If I could even get close to that, I cannot imagine doing this multiple days in a row. It's astounding, really astounding.
Yeah. I assume the wig very heavy as well.
It wasn't at all. It was really like to the point that like the only thing that I needed to make sure of was that I wasn't doing this more, because it was so light it would like kind of like wobble around. But I think it was like styrofoam or something in the middle of it. I'd have to double check with Denise, but yeah, it was surprising. Like I left that being like, oh yeah, I don't like, my neck doesn't hurt, I feel fine, this is great.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would have expected that to just have been like at the end of it, you're just like, I have to put my head down. That's incredible.
Really impressive.
Yeah. We're at the hour. I super appreciate this. I know Iffy has confirmed season 10 of actually that you'll be back. So excited for that. Anything you're looking forward to next season as you start to like plan out like things you want to do differently? I know at PAX you mentioned like you want to take the cast to Hobbiton and do a live episode from an episode filmed at Hobbiton. We'll see. I'm sure Dropout has that kind of cash to just
that's going to be that's a very distant goal, a distant dream if we really crush it, depending on how many subscribers we can bring in this next season.
It's season 10. Celebrate. Like send actually around the world.
Why not? I think that's fine, and we can send this clip to Sam, and I'm sure he'll agree 100%. But I think that like in a much less fun big answer, but a much more important one to me, is that like this season was really great and I had a lot of fun figuring it out, but I also was still figuring it out, right? Like I think that we've still created a show that is cohesive and good and up to the levels of the other past seasons, but I also like I've learned so much just from running a fact checker room, basically, to know where we're going from here. It's like one of the most important things that I learned from this experience was like how helpful it is to know what the couch is going to look like before I'm writing the questions, because then I'm able to give questions that are meaningful to those people. There were a couple of like, you know, last minute dropouts and just like, you know, swapping around, which is how it is with all casting. But like there were a couple things that I was like, oh, I was planning to do this, but I couldn't do it because of X reason, because this person didn't show up or because of this thing. And as a result, I wasn't able to give the kind of questions that I wanted to give to the couch, right? And so I hope that in this next season, what I really want to do is make sure that we have our couches stacked and like we figured out our casts, and that way I can like really give good statements to the people who are there, because that's when things get really fun, is when like people are passionate and want to talk about it, and like that's when it gets really, really exciting.
Yeah, the babality question jumps out at me from this last episode, which is like how fast.
Yes,
it was Monet, right?
Monet exchange.
It was just like
that was
like instantly be like, no, it turns you into a baby.
Yes.
Like,
it was so good. I was so happy about that one. Like truly had done my research beforehand where I was like, okay, I gotta look up all these drag queens and see if they've appeared on any nerdy related things or whatever. And one of like the one big thing I could find was that Monet Exchange had played specifically Mortal Kombat, but other like fighting games and stuff. And I was like, okay, I can do a Mortal Kombat question. I know that much at least.
Oh, incredible. Brian, this has been amazing. Do you want people to come follow you on the internet? I assume you do.
If people want to.
It'd be wild if anyone watching this didn't know where to find you, but if they wanted to follow you on Instagram, since you are very specifically not on TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok. I'm not doing that, but
stop following people who pretend to be you on TikTok.
Yes. If you want to follow me, you can, my Instagram is Brian Gilbert with an M instead of an N. And that's otherwise you can just find me at Brian David Gilbert on Twitch or on YouTube or on Patreon, wherever else you want to see me.
Wonderful. This was amazing. You'll have to come back, and maybe you and Iffy, you and Iffy and I can sit down like we didn't just do that last weekend. But yes, in the future, at some point, we'll do more of these things because this was incredible. Brian, thank you so much. I don't know how to end interviews, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.